Hello everyone, Poto-chan desu. Today we're going to be talking about The Boy and the Heron from Studio Ghibli, or Kimi wa dou ikiru ka. Okay, so this is going to be a heavy spoiler episode because there have been no advertisements telling us what to expect before we go to see the movie. So if you don't want to have the movie spoiled, come back when you've seen the movie. Now, I have seen a few Ghibli movies without seeing any marketing whatsoever, so it was a pretty good experience going blind. But I have watched this movie twice already, and I must say that watching it a second time after doing a little bit of research helped me understand the movie much better. There are many things that I missed the first time round because I was focusing too much on listening to the Japanese. So what is How Do You Live about? It's about a young boy, Mahito, in the middle of World War II. He loses his mother to a fire in Tokyo and moves to the countryside where he deals with a new stepmother in addition to the loss of his own mother. You can tell he dislikes his stepmother by his rigidity and lack of emotion. Then he meets a heron and disappears into the fantasy world after his stepmother disappears. Watching How Do You Live the first time was like watching a Picasso kaleidoscope. It was very interesting and impressive, but so confusing. It's not a movie you can just watch once. It needs more than one viewing. So let's talk about the characters. 3 years after the death of his mother, Mahito meets his stepmother Natsuko. He hates her from the beginning. Now you may think this is kind of strange for the father to remarry into the mother's family, but this is not so unusual. It was popular with rich and powerful families. Mahito's father is a Showa-era type rich man who has a detachment from the value of life and doesn't mourn like other people. He has a very money is power type mentality that is carried throughout the movie. He thinks his car will make his son's school life more acceptable. Mahito dreads this, but his father is completely oblivious to it. His father then bribes a principal so that his son does not have to go to school anymore. He also has no manners, as he talks with a mouthful of rice as if it was normal. Next, Natsuko. She is the younger sister of Mahito's mother, and when he first meets her, she is already very pregnant with Mahito's half-brother. Mahito hates this intrusion into his life. He hates his new school, and he hates Natsuko, and it shows. Natsuko, despite trying her best, feels hated by Mahito. In a later scene, after enduring Mahito's unending hatred, when Natsuko runs away to the fantasy world, Mahito comes to rescue her. But she has developed such a hatred for Mahito and screams, "I really hate you!" and orders him to leave. One very important point earlier on in this movie is that Mahito, after getting into a fight with a school kid, deliberately and methodically cuts himself with a rock. The amount of blood was shocking, but it's a very important part of the movie. Mahito is hurting emotionally, so to create some kind of balance, he self-harms himself, as many people suffering do. It indicates that Mahito has some ill will, or akui in Japanese. When he speaks to his great uncle, he states that he did have ill will and cannot take over for his great uncle. And although his life is hard, he wants to return to his life in the real world. He didn't run away from his responsibilities, even though Mahito decides to rescue Natsuko. One scene that spoke to me about Mahito's state of mind was when he was meeting Kiriko. Younger Kiriko is strong, tough, and has a hard life in this fantasy world, but is happy to be serving others. Kiriko cuts open a giant fish and nothing happens. I think this is Kiriko's state of mind. Clean, precise, no mess, no ill will. When it's Mahito's turn to cut open the fish, all the guts and gore pour out. I think this represents the mess of emotions that Mahito feels before he finally accepts Natsuko as his mother. When Natsuko disappears, we learn that Mahito's mother also disappeared for 1 year and comes back with a joyful attitude. The Heron tells us that no one can leave the fantasy world with their memories intact. But I think Himi returned to the real world with the knowledge of who her son would be, and also she knew she would die in a fire. Some people have said that Himi's hospital was bombed, but we don't hear any such sound in the beginning of the movie. And we see Himi, or Hisako in the real world, say goodbye to Mahito. I wonder if Himi didn't start the fire herself. It was her destiny to die in a fire, and that may be the reason why she was in hospital in the first place. She knew she would die in a fire, and if she told people this, she may have been put in a mental hospital. We have no idea why she was in hospital in the first place, but her happy goodbye to Mahito could be the same kind of time loop we saw in Howl's Moving Castle. If Himi doesn't die, then Mahito won't go to rescue his sister and Himi herself. This movie has strong elements of Miyazaki's life. He was born in 1941 during World War II. His family moved from Tokyo to Utsunomiya to avoid the bombing raids, and his father built airplane parts for the war. So in one respect, Mahito is Miyazaki. But, and there's a big but, the granduncle is also Miyazaki. The 13 blocks represents the 13 movies Miyazaki has made, and he is trying to pass the torch to someone. This is a movie that makes you think, and after I saw it the first time, there was a lot to be confused about. There is a lot of room for interpretation, and I think that may be Miyazaki's purpose. What will this movie mean to you? Which is why Miyazaki asks, how do you live? I would love to know what you think and how you interpret this movie, so let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. See you!